Hello and welcome to my commentary for Batwoman Season 2, Episode 13. This is the first live-action appearance of Stephanie Brown, the spoiler, and this is not, unfortunately, my first reaction, so this won't be one of those cool first-time watching videos, but I have spent some time doing some research into the character, actors, and writers who created this episode, so hopefully that'll provide a little bit of interesting information. I will be saying pause for commercial break when a commercial break happens, in case people are watching on the CW website, which means you'll have to wait. I went into this episode with very little expectation because I'd never watched a single episode of Batwoman before. I have watched 3 now, this episode, later episode with Luke Fox, and the season finale. And there definitely were things that I thought were, as I expected, low budget, and I don't want to say low effort because it's not what I mean, but it had a low effort effect on me. But there was also some stuff that I was really appreciative of. So hopefully that'll come through in the commentary. So I'm going to count us down from 3, and it'll be 3, 2, 1, go. So 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we're having some buffering problems. Here we go. All right, let me try that again. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so it starts 5 years ago, and this is very much a criminal of the week, a villain of the week. And we have here the introduction of Sophie, a crow, which is the law enforcement in Gotham at the time, and Clue Master, Arthur Brown, who is in jail because Sophie caught him. So Clue Master looks like he's in his, I gotta say, at least 40s, which makes sense because his daughter Stephanie's got to be in her late teens at this point. I do rather like this version of Clue Master. I don't actually know if Clue Master's had a live action debut before. He has had some cartoon appearances in The Batman. Now that was a nice little transition, transitioning on the back of Sophie to another prison guard. Clever visual work there. We have the escape of Arthur Brown. A very obvious dummy. These, a Clue Master message. And the Clue Master is extremely violent. And he has grown his ponytail, which is classic, both in the original Detective Comics 647 appearance of Stephanie Brown's origin, and in Batman Eternal #3. The first appearance in the new continuity after Flashpoint erased her from existence. So we have Ryan, who is the current Batwoman in the show. She has an interesting voice modulator. Now, they're definitely trying to make this be sort of like the Daredevil fight in the Marvel Netflix Daredevil. It's all one take, with possible cuts with pillars that go in front of the camera, so I don't know for sure. But that's done seamlessly, so that cut was not seamless, actually. That was actually a very obvious cut. But in general, it was pretty well done. The costume just looks really... It's one of those things that I think isn't low effort, but has a low effort effect. It just feels under-designed in how it works with the actress, and it just isn't something that I think is very effective. Now we have this whole Batwoman versus the Crows, which is supposed to be a fairly obvious metaphor for citizenry versus the police. but I don't think it works that well. Um, and this is about the Black Mass plot. That the most interesting thing for me about the Black Mass plot is actually that the recast, um, Kate Kane has been captured and brainwashed by Black Mask, and I really like Wallace Day from the Krypton TV show. She played Superman's grandmother in Krypton, and I really enjoyed that. I don't usually like Black Mask because he tortured Stephanie Brown to death, but I like Kate Kane, and it's also interesting because it's a repetition of what Kate's sister Beth went through. A little commentary on what's going on here. Dougray Scott, who I really like because he is the actor who played the prince in Ever After, which is my favorite Cinderella. Now, here we have the Black Mask plotline I was talking about. We have Alice captured by Black Mask with a nasty fingernail ripper offer machine to torture her. We have Kate Kane in a mask, sort of clearly brainwashed and enjoying torturing her sister, which is it's a little difficult. I really like Alice in the comics, and I like this actress who played Black Canary, a terrible Black Canary in the terrible Birds of Prey TV show back in the day. And she's playing Alice here, also known as Beth Kane. But she's just having so much fun. She's definitely embracing camp and over-the-topness, but it kind of works a lot. I'm not sure how I feel about doubling brainwashed, tortured, insane, both Kane sisters. It makes sense given what they were trying to write around, but it's weird. Now, I am not a fan of torture scenes, and this is definitely not a fun torture scene, so that is definitely a thing that's happening. Now, a lot of the promotion by the writers was about this girls' night between Ryan, Sophie, and Mary. Mary is Kate Kane's stepsister, Dougray Scott's second wife, daughter. I believe his second wife was murdered by Alice. So that's one of the reasons it's difficult to have sympathy for Alice sometimes, because she is a murderer. Now, I kind of really like Sophie in this, just because I like a more straight-laced character. But I will say that's just going on 3 episodes, so I could be completely wrong. Now, they promoted this as sort of a girls' night out episode, and since I don't really have a connection to any of these characters, other than Sophie being the one who caught Clue Master, I mean, I'm acting as if I had never seen any episodes except for this episode, because that's how I started. And so far, all I know is that Sophie is a former cop who caught Clue Master. So, so now they're playing a drinking game, and it's reasonably well acted. It has that kind of, I don't want to say catty, but it has a lot of tension to it because not all these characters are friends. And it's reasonably fun. But again, without a lot of connection to any of these characters, I don't have a ton of investment. So this is basically me just vamping for time until we get to a Steph part or a Clue Master part. So I do kind of appreciate the fact that they are weaving in a ton of character backstory and motivation for these characters, because if they were writing this for every episode could be someone's first, because this was my first episode of Batwoman. I didn't watch any of the first season or any of this season. This does give you a lot of information about their personalities and their histories and what kind of, So there are kind of boos that have bugs in it. I don't know this from experience, but so it's a very large bug. It's like bigger than a thumb, definitely. So this, of course, is the beginning of the clues that Clue Master has left for them. So they find out I do kind of like that Clue Master has the catchphrase, "I'll give you a clue," which is the title of the episode. Pause for commercial. So now they're following up with the backstory of the Clue Master, who was a game show host. They call it Quiz Bowl here. And apparently this Clue Master was a very violent murderer. And so they now know that Arthur has escaped. And so I like that they kind of layer in pieces of the plot through new information. And I do appreciate that they're not showing a bunch of phone screens either. They just tell the information. So that's nice. A lot of TV shows used to go around doing a lot of insert shots of just the phone screen, which is kind of annoying. So we learn the information that Sophie, even though she caught Clue Master, didn't solve the puzzles. So now Ryan is she's finding a hidden heat sensitive symbol. Oh boy, back to the torture scene. I do not enjoy this at all. Okay, I really don't enjoy that. They just ripped off Alice's fingernail on screen. Okay. So that is a thing that happened. Alice is in lots of pain. There's lots of blood on screen. And now Alice is grabbing a bottle to hit her captors. And Kate is coming down. Now, I know this is Kate, which is spoiling it, but henchwoman number 1 is kind of boring. So now Alice has knocked out Kate and is stealing her phone and calling her father, who is hallucinating his daughters as children. So I do actually really like the idea of Jacob Kane struggling with whether he should or could help his daughter who's become a murderer. And this is a very beautifully shot sequence with the lighting and so forth. So, unfortunately, Jacob's plotline really doesn't go anywhere in this episode, and I have no idea where it goes between here and the episodes I have seen. And now Kate's knocked Alice out. So, now, the girls have gone to a gun range based on the clue of the heat-sensitive bottle and the hot shot clue. Gotta love breaking and entering. And again, the tension continues. All right. So I also appreciate that they've given Sophie kind of a traditional cop speak with Vic and procedural like approach to how this goes. So that is nicely done. And now we find out the real truth, which is that she got a tip that helped her catch the clue master. So this reference is very much, in my opinion, similar to the Detective comic 647 to 649 origin by Chuck Dixon and Tom Lyle, the original creators of Stephanie Brown. She left clues for the police. Now, calling the tip line is a lot faster than what she did in the comics, which is leave huge clues and mailing stuff into the police. Now, here is a very interesting thing. And I think this is a reference to Batman Eternal. Stephanie Brown, commercial break, pause. I really like the way they've lit this booth. It's like an impenetrable booth of glass that's lit. So it like is very visually dynamic against the black night sky. It looks like a box of light. And that, I believe, was very intentional. They reference Batman Eternal, and in one of the early issues, Stephanie Brown is almost killed by her father hiring a drive-by shooter to blow her away at a phone booth. So this box, this bulletproof glass box, looks like a phone booth, and it's at a shooting range. So I do think that is a connection by the writers, because they did specifically mention Clue Master trying to shoot her at the phone booth, and that being an iconic image. So here's the puzzle where you have to put the blocks in order to figure out the order to shoot the target. So you both have to have a good enough aim to hit the targets in the right order. And then they're so they have poisoned Stephanie Brown, so they have to get her out of the box to give her the antidote. And Sophie pulling the "I am a military marksman, even though I'm drunk" card. The score is not too bad. And I like that we have Stephanie Brown kind of moving away from the signs. And Stephanie is now free. She's wearing a nice purple coat, which is pretty cool. The girl team is running to help her, and they give her the antidote, which her dad did provide for her. Now, one thing that a lot of people have talked about is that Steph has red hair. And this, she's covered in writing, which makes no sense because it's not in any order. So obviously it's a code. And when we first saw the promotional images, by the way, I'm talking over another scene of Alice and Kate. So Steph covered in writing was one of the first images we saw of her in Entertainment Weekly, and we thought that this was kind of some kind of edgy thing like the Joker or Harley Quinn in the original Suicide Squad movie. Instead, her being kidnapped by her dad and written on in code makes a lot more sense, and I think actually is very clever. It's the kind of thing that I would see a Clue Master or a Riddler type of villain doing. So we have Alice trying to psych out s2e13, who Kate has been brainwashed in thinking she is. I gotta say, the burn victim makeup on Kate is really gross. This whole scene is very Black Mask and gross. If you like that, you'll like this. I do really like Alice's performance, but I do not. Rachel Skarsten, I believe, is the actress. But I do not enjoy just how gross it is. It's not my kind of taste. But it did kind of endear me to Rachel's portrayal of Alice, even though she is a murderous character. She has a cleverness that's fun to watch as she tries to get out of the situation. And she clearly is really enjoying herself, which is always a plus. So, I do like this face-to-face with the lighting behind them. That's really good. Now we're back to Steph, and she is being examined by Ryan and Sophie, trying to figure out the codes. And she says, spoiler alert, and it's great. I do love the fact that they just went out there and it's like, spoiler alert, her catchphrase. It's awesome. And so the red hair is something that people said, well, she's obviously Babs in disguise, but she's not like Babs. She is very smart, but Steph is reasonably smart. And now I really like this backstory they've sort of added. Clue Master in Batman Eternal said that he wanted to train Steph to be Pointer, his sidekick. And so giving this as a backstory, his backstory of Steph kind of being raised and as a barometer of whether his puzzles were too hard for the people he views as contemptible, I think is quite clever and nicely worked in. And I think Morgan Kohan does a good job of kind of showing the shock and the kind of horror of having to grow up like this. And here's Luke Fox. I love Luke Fox. He's kind of a Tim Drake / Oracle type character here, whereas he's kind of more of a fighter, kind of a buff playboy type. Now, and so Luke and Steph are flirting, and I think it is adorable because I love both of those characters. Now, in normal comics universe, I wouldn't really ship this because Steph is 17 and Tim is in his mid-20s, so it'd be a little weird. But here they're the same age, and they have a lot of chemistry. Now, the actors really had a good time, and apparently they called this ship Foxy Brown, which I think is great. And this is a classic TV scene of these two characters work together well. They have a romantic chemistry, and they also have the same interests. So, like, it's fun. And then Luke and Steph trying to solve the code. So here's what do they call it? A keyword, a decryption key. So that's a really cool thing. So they go to the Quiz Bowl set, which is kind of fun. it kind of gives me a classic Batman 66 vibe. And that's because when I was a little kid in the 90s, there was a Batman storybook that I used to read. And it was Batman and Robin getting captured, but I think the Riddler. And they, had to get free from bonds and solve puzzles. And this is exactly like that. This is such a classic 60s campy Batman thing. I'm not actually a big fan of that, but it works perfectly for a D-list villain like Clue Master. So someone like Clue Master having a campy, stupid, but also murderous type of plot is great. And there's another pause for commercial. A great choice to use the Quiz Bowl logo and theme song. Like, there's a lot of creative energy that really has a fun vibe here. Now, the death trap here is, of course, they're standing on an explosive plate, and they have to solve riddles in order to save them. So I don't know if this is supposed to be pre-recorded or live. I think it's probably pre-recorded based on the fact that we later see Clue Master in his Clue Master outfit, and here he's in a suit. And it is fun trying to stump the characters to see if you can answer the questions. Now, here's our montage of trying to decode Steph's writing. I was mentioning the music. I didn't really get that far. So the music's very sort of electronic, with a bit of a percussive orchestral quality to it, which is really typical for superhero shows and movies these days. So it doesn't stand out, but it also works. So it's definitely not something I want to hit. And again, these two clearly have a lot of chemistry. And so Steph is apparently very, very smart. She graduated early from MIT. She knows the Playfair cipher, which, as a fan of classic mystery novels in the 1930s, was a big cipher that a lot of people get early in the. It's basically right after the Dancing Men in terms of learning how to code, not code, learning how to decrypt and encrypt. Again, they're slipping in little bits of Steph's backstory about how she tried to earn her dad's affection. Now, this is classic because Steph just knocked Luke out by whacking him in the face with a hard object, which is exactly what she did when she first met Tim Drake, Robin. Robin was trying to apprehend her, thinking she was in league with the Clue Master, and she hits him in the face with a brick. And that's a classic Tim and Steph moment. So originally, I used to think that this was mostly a Batman Eternal story, but this is such a great blending of Detective Comics 647 to 649 and Batman Eternal in terms of giving Steph's backstory and establishing her place in the supporting cast. Her flirtation with Luke, who is in a sort of Tim role and being a detective and very smart and very sweet. Tim and Luke are both sweet characters, at least this version of Luke. I think Luke's fairly sweet in the comics too, but he's different than this. This Luke is very sweet in a Tim way, very humble and loyal and kind. So I really like this Luke. I like Luke in most versions, except for in John Ridley's comics. I have not enjoyed Luke in those because I think he writes him as incompetent. So now, oops. I do like that the girls are like, Luke's the problem solver, but he is knocked out, so they cannot reach him. And this, of course, leads to the revelation. Now, this is supposed to be a big revelation between Sophie, who used to date Ryan, and Ryan herself. Now, we're back to the classic Black Mask versus Alice and Kate, or Circe Sionis, as the unwitting pawn. So here we go with Alice again proving that she is taking control of the situation, even though she is in captivity. Now, this is a scene that they tried to do with Black Mask, interestingly, in the Birds of Prey movie, and it did not persuade me at all when Harley Quinn was able to think her way out of a almost identical hostage situation with Black Mask. This one, they give a much better reason for Alice to be able to persuade Black Mask of what she wants him to do. Whereas in Birds of Prey, I was like, the reason Black Mask gives in is so convenient for the writing and makes no sense in terms of the motivations and what we've seen Black Mask do, which is just blow people away or torture them. So, as you probably can tell, I'm not a fan of the Birds of Prey movie, with the exception of I like both Black Canary and Huntress in that film. Uh, so we're back in the sort of pressure plate bomb trap, and they're all fighting, and their interpersonal conflicts are getting in the way. Again, I've liked how they've introduced the characters and given me information, but unfortunately, I just don't like these three characters very much. And we have the revelation that Sophie knows that Ryan is Batwoman, and Ryan is a horrible actor. I do think that um, Sophie is the most likable character in here because she is the one who's interested in working towards a solution. Um, I just really struggle with these three characters because I don't know them and they haven't persuaded me to like them as much. Whereas I know Luke and Steph from the comics, and even though they're different, I really like these versions of them. So I'm just less. Oh, pause for commercial right there. All right. So we're all about this tension about the secret identity and trusting each other and Team Batwoman. And again, I don't have enough connection to these characters in the comics because Ryan's only appeared twice. Mary is basically Betty Kane in position. Not. Oh, sorry, we blacked out there. But again, we're still with these characters in this. So now we have a scene where Ryan goes into the Batcave. She gets roots in a Batcave setup. And there's the Batwoman suit. And we have a Bat grapnel. Aha. And we have Steph in her purple hoodie, which makes her look very much like Stephanie Brown, the action figure. I love that. And Cluemaster wearing his classic comic outfit, which I love. The vest with the chemical things down the chest, his gross ponytail, and I do really like the dynamic they have here. They have Steph revealing that she worked against Cluemaster, and Cluemaster's reaction to that is pretty reasonable in terms of skill. I mean, obviously, Cluemaster's an unhinged murderer, but I also like the way that they've lit this with the red and the blue, and of course, Cluemaster pulling out a gas canister to knock her out. Um, I wonder. I don't know. It doesn't seem too stupid. Like I'm not like outraged, but it does seem like Steph didn't quite think it through, like how she was going to stop him. Maybe she had um a gadget herself. Now, Cluemaster has put himself and Steph in the car with gas. So obviously he's basically committing suicide and trying to kill. So a murder suicide. I kind of like that as life is a puzzle. This is the only fits that fit. That's a very like fatalistic, despairing Cluemaster way to go. And then Steph's despair. And of course, last minute rescue with a bat punching her out, punching the window and getting Steph out. So there's some classic save the day action from Luke. So of course we have our last minute rescue on the bomb plate. I would be interested to know if they actually tried to time out how long it would take Sophie to get to the Batcave and back. And of course, this is supposed to be the big emotional core of this part of the episode. The three characters who've been tense, like all three of them have tension with each other. Um, and so this is supposed to be a reconciliation moment and supposed to be heartwarming. And it's not bad. I will say all the actresses do kind of bring their A game to this section. I just think that the writing and the acting earlier on didn't quite convince me. Maybe that's again because I haven't been invested in these characters because I've only watched this episode before this. I watched later episodes, as I said, but those didn't really develop these characters as much. They developed Mary a little bit in the Luke episode, but I didn't like that episode very much. With one exception. There was kind of a fun thing with the gray spider kind of and Mary distracting a guard, and that was kind of funny. Now, and we have some sentimental, soulful piano music. And now we have all right. And then we have Batwoman saving the day with an explosion. They really should not survive just because they're so close to it. But of course, it looks really cool. So I don't mind that much. It's sort of like a Dark Knight Rises situation where the timing doesn't work at all, but it's all about the emotional effect. And so I sort of can give it a pass. And unlike the opening Batwoman fight scene, it doesn't strike me as low effort. And again, as I said, this is the emotional climax section, and the actresses, it works. Even though I haven't been invested in that plot, the music and the way they've set it up kind of works. Now here we have Cluemaster, who couldn't stand to live in a world where Steph is smarter than him. And then Luke and Steph, in their final scene, this is their emotional connection. They're making nerdy pop culture references, which is fun. So I do like the way they act together. There's a real appeal. They kind of care about each other, but they don't know each other well enough to be able to admit it. But Luke being a more mature person in some ways, a more open person because he's got a network, and Steph seems to be pretty alone. Um, and so Luke being a comforter here is really nice. I really like this Luke because he's very emotionally giving and generous, and Steph is responsive to that. She's not an ice queen, so I. And here, of course, she gives him a nice kiss, and it's very gentle and sweet. And then, of course, they reference that in the finale where he gets macking on a hot redhead. So they told us early on that Steph was only going to be in this episode because the rest of the season was already plotted out, but they're trying to get her back for later episodes in season 3. So if that happens, I'll definitely do more commentaries and reactions on that. Hopefully as happy as this one. Um, so this is about Kate's dad, Jacob, he overdosed on a drug called snakebite because he's grieving and stuff. Um, Again, I don't really care about this plot. And then we have Sophie and Ryan sort of processing the revelation that Sophie knows that Ryan is Batwoman. Anyway, so they said that they want to get Stephanie back in the future. They've also said, though, that Mary and Luke are probably going to be the endgame ship. And unless they promote Stephanie to a main character, that's probably going to be true. Steph's probably going to be a guest character, sort of like Huntress was in the first 2 seasons of Arrow, where she only appeared in about 3 episodes in 2 seasons. Given the fact that we haven't had a live action Stephanie Brown, 2 or 3 episodes in a network series is pretty cool, especially when they have so many rich references to Stephanie, Cluemaster, Batman Eternal, and Detective Comics, their history, their actual origins. This was written by people who know and respect and care about the comics. And I have to give them props. I'm not a Batwoman fan in terms of the show. I love the Batwoman character in the comics, but I don't know Ryan, so I'm not a fan of that. But clearly, these writers know and love the comics, and that is cool. I've got to give them a lot of respect for that with Stephanie Brown. And now we have our ending scene with Kate and Alice and Black Mask. And Kate is putting on the face for Kate. And this leads, I was actually expecting this line all the way through the episode. And when they did it, I will admit, I got a little shiver and was extremely excited. So this is kind of gross because they take off the mask and she's basically got hamburger for face, and they put on the face. And there's so much irony and heavy-handed double meanings in all the lines that are going on. And here we reveal again. So Alice reveals so many things about how she's known things, and she's been trying to psychologically manipulate both Sionis and Kate at the same time. So they're heavy-handedly going towards the eyes, which is very important for anyone who knows a very key line. And here, Alice says the line. You have our father's eyes, which is the famous line where it's revealed that Alice is actually Elizabeth, Kate's twin sister. And this is really nicely done in terms of flipping that script, having Alice trying to bring Kate back instead of revealing herself to Kate. So, again, evidence that they love the comics, so they really built to a moment, even flipped and all confused. So, honestly, quite a solid episode of TV, even though I don't really love the sections that are just about Ryan and Sophie and Mary. I really liked I loved the Stefan and Tim Fox and Cluemaster stuff. That was really good. And the campy Batman 66-esque parts of the game show puzzles, it just tickled the part of me that does appreciate that kind of campiness. And then, of course, I do appreciate how, even though they're gross and I'm not a huge fan of it, they did the torture and captivity scenes and sort mental chess games that Alice and Black Mask are playing. They did it well, and how they slowly show that Alice really is in charge, and she's not just a victim, and she's in charge of what's going on in the room, even though she's the one who's being tortured and under threat of death. All building to "You have our father's eyes." That was a fantastic reveal and a fantastic line to use for the reveal. So this was Batwoman Season 2, Episode 13. I'll give you a clue. First live action appearance of Stephanie Brown. I highly recommend this episode. I can't say if I highly recommend the show or not because it's not my kind of thing. But this episode shows that if you like the comics they're playing with, they know the comics, they respect them, and they're put them in the show. So, gets my spoiler alert with my little Stephanie Brown. Thanks for watching.